virtual event will look at the latest trends driving the change in consumer behavior and how it has impacted the industry's growth, covering a gamut of areas across the entire ContentTech, AdTech, and MarTech ecosystem. This summit intends on bringing all the major stakeholders under one roof and conduct meaningful knowledge sharing sessions, which helps the industry in growing. We had exciting sessions on the 3 days, and this is the day four with some of the best names of the industry. Now, before we move forward, we request you all to kindly check the agenda for the day on the CAM website and check out the sessions planned out at the summit. We encourage our viewers to share the questions for the speakers in the comments box or in the events chat box. You can also share your perspective for the day through your proceedings on social media accounts. We can be found on ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook and IndiaTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. Don't forget to use the hashtag CAM2022 and post on your post and tag our official handles. Well, now none of this would have been possible without the tremendous support of our partners, and we would like to thank them all. Our co-powered by partner PubMatic, our industry partner AdTech, and this event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. Now, without much further ado, let's begin with our Power Pack Day with our first session on decoding users' experience and retention. And for this session, I would like to invite a distinguished panelists, and they are Mr. Jayant Shirsagar, Senior Vice President, Marketing, Lavatab, Mr. Dinesh Arora, Head of Growth and Revenue, Tentacuts, Farm Fresh Meats, who was actually unable to join us today due to a personal emergency. We have Ms. Jasmine Sachdeva, Senior Vice President, Senior Vice President from Zenith, and we have Mr. Venkat Erpina, Vice President, Marketing from Fast Enough. This session will be moderated by Mr. Bharatish Salyan, Senior Vice President, Marketing Science and CX from Connect. I welcome you all, and over to you, Mr. Bharatish.
Thank you so much, Deenal, for the introductions. It's a great panel that we have here. We have representation from three key categories of our industry. One which is people from the brand like Venkat, who lead brands, who look at the marketing initiatives that brands need to take. We have Jasmine, who's from the agency side of the business, where we partner with brands, she literally partners with brands to look at the right solution, to look at the right strategy so that they could partner with brands to create great customer experiences. And then we have enablers of all of this in form of Jayant, and the services of ClearTap that, the kind of services that ClearTap offers for its customers. So I think it's a great panel, and I'm looking forward for some great discussion with all you guys in kind of decoding what is the new evolution around user experience and customer retention. Having said that, let me open up the session with the first question to all of y'all. In terms of today, in our respective fields, what has really changed? What has the pandemic changed? How have users changed in the last couple of years? And from a user experience point of view, what is it that they're expecting? How do we find out more about what is it that they want and preempt it better? And has the overall retention strategy changed? Jasmine, if in case you could start, we could start with you, and you could just tell us about that, followed by Venkat, and then Jayant, you could bring in the whole implementation piece of how this could be made. What has changed? What has data told you, and what is the way forward, you think?
Okay, I'm actually just coming from a point of view that consumer or the user, whoever you want to talk about, whether it's on the digital platform or the offline, there was a time when we were guessing what they want, right? Then we went into, getting some data to understand. It was probably a static data like a IRS, etc., to understand who this user is and where is the probability of finding. And today we are at a stage where there is, AI, machine learning, all of that supporting us. And there is a future that we can see where we can actually use what their current behavior is to actually come and connect with them. From guessing to actually predictive journeys that they've gone through is amazing. How brands are actually wanting to deliver fast, wanting to deliver immediate experiences that the consumer is going to live with, and consumers are going to live with and going to come back. That is the key. Are they going to come back of the experience that you've left them to be with? So that's the evolution, that how I see how things have changed. And as marketers, between Venkat and Jayant, yes, we are taking all those efforts to making sure that we go back to them again and again with what they want before they've even thought of it.
Lovely. That's great. Now, here's one question. You spoke about data. Venkat, with the kind of D2C platforms that you have and access to first-party data, now, how do you think, you would be in a better position to create greater user experience based on the data that you collected, based on the purchase patterns that you've seen, based on the heat maps that you've seen on your owned assets? Do you think there is something to learn from there?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. So,
Yeah,
just to start with, I think coming from a D2C brand, which is Fasten Up especially, I think there is a pattern change. Like, let's say, for example, if you take last 2 years, I think 2 years back, we entered into market with a certain category, which is into sports nutrition. Then we understood that I think there is relatability in various categories. For example, today, I think the new categories that we are entering into, the new products that we are launching into, if you have a very strong retained customer base, like let's say, I think it's easy to balance your approach towards your future growth. So I think the relatability is very important. I think as she mentioned, I think very important piece that we need to focus on is, I think, a satisfaction of the customer on all fronts. Like let's say delivery time, or you call it as packaging, you call it as the way we communicate to those users in various instances of product delivery. So I think all these come into play, and very importantly, I think product quality is also plays a very important role. So keeping all these points in mind, I think the customer data, like let's say for example, today if a certain user purchased X product, I think if he falls into the same cohort, like let's say which relates to another product, I think it's easy to reach out to him than acquiring a brand new customer from the market. So that is how we see, I think that is how we use the data that we have with us.
Yeah, but a question here, that from a user experience, brands normally tend to start pushing a user, start nudging a user to buy a product. How much of a nudge is important, and where do we as brands or marketers need to stop that nudge to ensure that we have a seamless customer experience where we are selling value, not a product?
So I think like 2 years back, maybe 5 years back, like let's say when we used to communicate with customers, it's more of sending an email once in morning, like let's say in the, another email in the evening. I think we don't know to whom we are sending, what we are sending to those users. So today, I think the pattern, the data that's sitting in our database explains us what is that customer really wants, and again, how is that customer behaving. So accordingly, I think we can create a lot of journeys where it becomes more personalized communication than, like let's say, sending a brand related email versus product related email. So for example, he purchased X product, I think he is more prone towards buying that related product. So I think the communication changed from brand to product there. So I think that relatability is very important.
Okay. Now, coming to relatability, we have one of the industry experts here, Jayant, who's here. Relatability along with nudge through push notifications. Jayant, from a platform point of view or from a user point of view, where have you seen, if in case you can give us some examples in terms of how first party data, how third party data, second party and third party data have come together to help you all or help your brands or your clients create a seamless path to purchase or create a seamless customer journey?
On mute, Jayant.
Yeah. Can I step back a little, Bharatesh, before
Absolutely, Jayant.
So to speak, all our customers are B2C companies with digital native business models, but we are a B2B company. We help with a platform for our customers to create that experience for their consumers. right? And I see a big change in the difference there. Okay, so for example, I think almost all B2C companies had created the experience, but now coming back to your point and what Venkat just called out, now they are creating that value through the experience. Okay, they're not spamming anymore. They're personalizing, hyper personalizing, right time, right message to the right persona, contextual. Is the key now, because the moment you try to spam, the guy is going to get out of the app, and retention is not only at the last phase of the customer life cycle. Retention now in the SaaS model is relevant throughout the 5 steps of the customer buying journey. So if I have to share some jargon here, double A triple R, that's the model, right? Acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and then referral. Okay, now except acquisition, right from the second step, retention is relevant. So if you download an app, but if you don't start using it, if you've not activated it, so that's a retention issue. You've downloaded an app or you've activated, but you've not added a product to a cart. It's a churn. It's a retention issue. Unlike in the previous era, when banks and credit cards, for example, would reach out to only when you say that, hey, I don't want to continue with you anymore. It was only in the last stage, and that was when retention was kind of relevant. So coming back now, how does the technology help in these cases? Is that companies like CleverTap have created a platform which has 3 layers: data layer, analytics, and recommendations. So as Venkat was saying, we help fetch real-time data from customer master records and help marketers do live segmentation. So based on geography, demographics, behavior analytics, product analytics, psychographics, so on and so forth, and serve real-time recommendations while you are in the product, which are, as I said, hyper-personalized, contextual. So if I'm a Maharashtrian and I like to see a comedy TV serial after I return home at 10 p.m. on internet, when I log into my OTT platform, they will show me recommendations and options only on that at that time, which I don't mind. But if they show that to me at 2 p.m. while I'm in office, I'm going to, kind of not like it. Okay. So that's, I think, the first part, which is helping you understand the customer buying behavior, segmentation, real time, and then serve relevant recommendations. So push notifications is just the last part in that chain. That's not the core product. The core product is what happens at the back. Okay. And lastly, I just want to call out one point, that when it happens real time, that's when you see the maximum conversion. So retention is not just important from safeguarding your consumer base or retail user base, but it also leads to growth. Okay, and few statistics from well-known researchers which are published are every 5% increase in retention helps you increase 40 to 70% increase in operating margin. Cost of acquiring a customer is far higher than cost of retaining a user. All of these are like well-known kind of facts. So I think to sum up, the evolution of companies from offering just experience to now experience plus value, which is unique and personalized for that user with the help of technology, is the key to retain customers in today's world.
Okay, so that comes the technology part of it. Okay, but here's a question again to Jayan, to Venkat. How do you take care of the emotional quotient when it comes to experiences in the user's mind? Because there are two rationale to it, right? One is a behavioral change and one is an emotional shift.
Yes.
Where do you think does emotion play a critical value in this value chain while creating seamless experiences?
Okay. So again, when we look at the current day pattern, I think especially everything is measured in time, right? The minute they enter into website, or you call it as they get onto social media, I think the value, the quicker we give that value to either creatives or navigation in website, I think we have to value user time. So I think the minute they feel that value, I think they connect to the brand, they connect to the product. So I think even connect to the website in if you call it as technology or app. So I think the seamless approach or the seamless direction that we give to the user's journey, like let's say either I think there is a pattern change. Like let's say there used to be 45 seconds videos that used to come in on YouTube and social media like years back. Today, I think every brand is switching towards those 5 second, 10 second videos because they want to value the time of the user. So I think the longer the video, the lesser chance of watching a video these days. So I think all brands are switching to those 5 to 10 seconds bumper videos. Even platforms itself prioritizing those shorter videos. So I think the more the value you give to the customer's time, I think even on website we should not confuse the user. I think he should spend as much less time as possible on website just to finish his purchase, or like let's say just to understand about the product. So for example, I was going through few websites across the globe where I think we are looking into the similar categories. Currently still Indian market, all brands are more towards image related product approach. I think there are many, slowly the brands are evolving in a way that they put in a small video so that he doesn't even need to go through the content to understand the product. So I think the more value you give to the customer in terms of saving his time, I think that gives a lot of edge to your brand in terms of either you call it as conversion or you call it as a retention. And again, I think as Jayant clearly mentioned, I think the way we communicate to the customer got changed a lot. We can't spam them. We can't keep communicating with them with the same message and same language. I think we should entice that user with a different approach. Like we can call it as a nurturing in a regular marketing language, but it's more of a creating that connect with the user is very important.
Okay, interesting. Jasmine, your take on that?
Slightly different. I think not only time. I think it's very, very important today to make sure that you understand what they want and give it to them at the right time. So the personalization, the whole think of the wherever they are, whichever part of the consumer journey they are. With digital world, it's all collapsed. That journey is really short. So therefore, the shorter video, etc., is important. But that's one-way communication. What are they seeking is more important, at least in my mind. What is your consumer actually seeking? Are they seeking information? And this information could be about anything that they want to, use as a product, and not only just stay with talking about the one brand and leaving that one-sided message. It could be personalized, but it's one-sided message. But did I really want it? Even in my latent needs, if as a consumer, we can understand that, then giving that is at the perfect time, like Jayant was mentioning, like in evening, getting that message that your new episode is ready. That's what's important, because that's what I wanted. If it went to something else, then maybe not.
Can I come in with 2 points on this? Okay? Yeah. So Jasmine, I read an interesting article which spoke about serving and not selling. Okay. And I think those 3 words, sum up what you just said. That instead of trying to sell, if you service your user on what he or she is looking for, I think that is the key. And second, again, going back to technology today is advanced to a stage where you don't only identify the actions which are taken, but you also have algorithms, AI and ML to your use to know what are the reasons why these actions are taken. And therefore, those whatever you do next is up to the marketer, individual marketer, of how do you make best use of it. But technology can do only so much and take you to that level that, as I think you only said initially, Jasmine, earlier you did not know, or I think Venkat, you said it, earlier you did not know what they wanted. Now today, with the help of technology, you can know what you want.
Great. But after hearing all you guys, one very challenging question that I want to pose to all of you all. Okay, today we're talking about users and we talk about consumers. We always had that thought in mind in our traditional marketing minds that there is a user and there is a consumer. Today, a user is a connected user who's online 24/7, which means he's a potential customer for you throughout the day. Okay. How would you actually, and since we're looking at this entire journey where he's completely connected, you think retention strategies for consumers have changed? The way brands look at retention and the strategies they've used traditionally to retain a consumer through CRM programs and stuff. Has that kind of changed today? Or are brands, are platforms, are agencies looking at it differently? You may call it a VUCA world, you may call it a world which is in the zone of hyper adoption, but something is changing,
take a
right?
shot at it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, yes, it has changed. And I think I partially answered that question when I said in the life cycle, retention starts at step number 2 and not at step number 5 now. Okay. So that's the first change. Okay. Retention is relevant throughout the customer buying life cycle and not only in the last phase. That's, I think, point number 1. Point number 2, I think retention is the new growth. So the whole approach to retention has changed. Okay. And there are reasons for that. 10 years back, when the entire digital native boom started happen, the focus was on acquisition. Everybody was after acquiring millions of users without worrying about, what are they doing? What is the usage? How much is the monetization? Because it was, so to speak, a valuation game. More the user, more is your valuation. Today, 10 years down the line, if you look at the industry today, that's not true anymore, because 90% of the new users that you acquire disappear. Daily active users I'm talking about disappear in the first 90 days. So people have understood, so how are they doing it? And that's the most important question. How are they doing it? I think the answer is simple and difficult. If I look at companies like banks like ICICI Bank, for example, or if I look at companies like Tata Click, I won't share more details on it, but what I can tell you is that their sole focus is on creating a customer experience which is unique, so that users keep coming back because of that experience. That's the glue, and therefore they are able to get higher retention and higher revenue, from their user base. Okay, so Tata Click, as we all know, is a luxury goods on the internet, right? Now the definition of luxury has changed according to them. It's not about a label or a price tag anymore. It's about the experience that you create when a user is buying that product on the web. And they have spent entire energy on just creating that experience without worrying about what will be the outcome. And I would say retention, higher revenue growth is a byproduct that has happened in this entire process.
Great.
So I can just add to what Jayan said. So there are brands and there are their life stages, how they can lead to maintaining or retaining their consumer base. There are these app ecosystems where from acquisition today, I know apps are getting, and we are helping these app ecosystems to make sure that the first transaction happens within 4 days. Within the 2 day, within the 10 days, you make sure there are 2 transactions that have happened on the app, so that higher retention, because as he said, people are going to download and then move out or keep it in their phone and not use it. You don't want that. So that's one way of, keep engaging with them. The other is to give them the experiences that they wanted, and not just, just come there and, serve it out, but actually listen to them. What would they actually want? Do they really need information? So there are things like a brand that I work on, Nestle has created something called Ask Nestle, which actually talks about just giving information to mothers and not talking about what brand fits where. And they've just left it at that. People engage there a lot more. We understand them a lot more. And then, a brand starts to talk to you. So there are 2 ways to do it. Either you just serve like we were talking earlier, or you keep engaging in a way that they keep using your product a little more, to make sure that the retention is happening at each stage of the consumer journey.
Venkat, your thoughts on this?
So also adding, hello?
Yeah, Venkat, please go on.
So also add on top of both Jasmine and Jane's point, I think acquisition became very, very costly these days, especially because many brands are entering into the categories. So many new brands are coming in, and existing brands are expanding their categories. So for a simple example, I think lately we launched some plant protein product. I think there is a switch from whey protein to plant protein lately, especially in Indian market. I think brands like Muscle Braze and all these much old branders are getting into plant protein again. So I think the space is becoming very costlier in terms of acquiring new customers. So I think even in fact, I think top of the funnel to certain extent it's less costlier, but I think when we come to bottom of the funnel, I think it's becoming way costlier. That you're looking at the gross margins that we have in place and discounts that we give to the customer. So acquisition is not an easy game. So I think the better chance you have is, at least if you can maintain certain good percentage of stickiness of the existing customer base through good retention strategy. I think that gives a lot of leeway in terms of like, let's say, moving your business into the future with a strong hold. So I think don't leave your customer back once he is acquired. I think you have to have double focus on the customer who is already acquired, because we already know that he is in your kitty and he is irrelevant to your cohort, compared to a new customer in this world of so many users around, like let's say platforms like social medias and all these. I think they became very costly. So I think I would suggest always take a good care of your existing customer base, because they are already in your cohort and your own kitty. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Such valid points made by each one of you all, and it makes so much sense in this current world. But again, traditionally as marketers, we've always looked at creating personas and cohorts, bucketing a certain set of people under those cohorts and personas. And today, suddenly, when we talk about hyper personalization, are we by any sense junking out the traditional thing of, that this is my cohort, this is my persona, this is the linear path to purchase that people would follow, to a current scenario where the path to purchase for any brand is completely non-linear? What are your views on these?
I don't think we're going to junk it out. Yes, as a prelim, you need to have a slightly narrowed thinking, because it's not only about the lower funnel, as Venkat was pointing out, it's about the expansion of your core audience also. So you need to get that cohort in place, but when you're targeting them within that cohort, it will not make sense till you've personalized it to connect with them better. So your unique IDs, etc., will start playing importance while you're making sure that you're in the conversation with them. But as a step back, just when you want to expand your audiences, your cohorts will still keep playing that importance of at least trying to know. Say, for example, I may be wanting to talk to a precise mother who is, going to give a cereal or whatever to your child. But at a broader level, I'm actually talking to a mother. So tomorrow, or a female or a parent for that matter, so if I can broaden that out, I have a expansion possibility in the future of people who may be coming to my product or my brand at a later stage as well. So that's going to stay in that sense.
Okay, but in terms of hyper personalization, again, the whole thing is with hyper personalization, I'm saying that every customer is going to be unique. It's more like our Amazon page.
Yep.
Every single Amazon page is going to be different, which means technically they're creating that many personas of users somewhere around. You think that's going to be the future somewhere down the line?
Absolutely. See, the unique IDs that we're today trying to target with, all our partners, and trying to make sure that you're targeting and talking to the right consumer at the right time. Till you don't do it, we all know it's not going to come in, nor are they going to come in, nor are they going to be retained by us. So that, that whole journey of their unique journey towards their final purchase is absolutely going to be only served by when we are, feeding them the thing that they really wanted. And I'm going back to my first point, knowing them exactly what, say, a Jasmine needs or a Venkat needs will only make sense if you both, I'm sorry, I'm taking that leeway, but you bucket both of us as, 35 to 45, all adults. It's not going to work anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Jayant, just to add, the same question, I would want your opinion on this, along with an added thing of how much data is good data? Because today one of the things that we deal with is data overload. While understanding a user, understanding a persona, trying to create a user experience, going on to hyper personalization, contextual, psychographic behavior, there's so much and so much more, and so much more will keep adding to it. Okay, there is data coming in from DSP, there are data coming from DMP, there are click rates, there are everything. How much data is relevant data, is good data to look at, so that we don't suffer the whole thing of data overload? And again, how much amount of data will actually be needed to create these hyper personalized experiences?
Okay, so I think the first answer is simple. The more the data, the better we can serve our customers, serve our users. Okay, because if my intention is to spam, the guy is anyway not going to come to me. If by mistake he came to us, he would have gone away. Okay, because and also some of the why do we see that digital native business models are shifting, or are kind of growing at a fast pace, and even traditional companies are looking at digital native business models? The reason for that is that the user behavior is changing, and changing for good. I don't think we will go back to the old ways of doing things. Okay. The user preferences are also changing. I may still be comfortable in going to a mall and buying things, but my daughter is not. Okay, she is born with the smartphone, so she's okay. She's comfortable. I get that guilty feel of returning a apparel when it doesn't fit you. She's perfectly okay with it. Okay, so these are these emotional points that Jasmine was talking about. So to me, I feel that this buying behavior is changing with a lot of audience in a country like ours, which is dominated by youth, for good. So it's a irreversible change to my mind. Marketers will have no choice but to comply by the I would say exercise this data carefully. Okay, and to that effect, the data laws are coming in, privacy laws are coming in. Europe, you already have it. US, you already have them. It will soon come out throughout the world, and it's going to only help us, because today I know most of the companies that are working on the B2C space right now, all of them have the consent, and they know what users have opted for, and they only give out that communication. I don't think, whether law or no law, anybody is giving out information which is not necessary or not asked by the user.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, and this is also all going to change, because now we are soon going to move towards the ID-less world, identity-less world.
Yes.
With that, I think we will go through another revolution.
Yeah, which is, again, I would rather call it a re-evolution rather than a revolution. I think as marketeers, a lot of it is going to re-evolve in terms of creating very ubiquitous consumer journeys and user experiences. I think that it's an interesting space that we are in. My next question is here that I have is here for Venkat. Venkat, as customer, as a user experience model and as a retention model, how relevant do you think it is even for brand building? Because right now in a D2C space, we technically primarily focus on sales, we focus on acquisition, retention. But again, building a brand using customer experience as a base, how important you think it is, and do you think brands are really doing that in the right sense today, or you see a need gap analysis which needs to be done in that space?
Right. So again, I think user experience is not just with technology, or not just with services, not just with product. So it starts with product quality till ends with the last mile delivery, like the minute product gets delivered and the communication gets into his mailbox. So I think user experience across this journey, like let's say product getting manufactured in a factory till the product gets delivered, I think the customer is watching everything, like let's say their website, their product, their quality, their service, their communication, everything. So I think what happens with lately, few brands are very strong in building these journeys, but I think brands that are entering into the market, or like let's say where there is not much bandwidth, I think their focus is more on sales than experience. So I think the new brands that are getting into the market, or like, let's say, evolving brands, I think their first responsibility is to make sure that you are caring about your customer, consumer. So whether, I think for every product that every month we run a dipstick survey about customer experience around product, around service, around everything. So I think there are so many different activities that we can do to understand whether customer is or consumer is happy with our product, our service, our delivery, our website, everything. So I think monitoring that is very important. So usually what happens is we overlook that. We focus more on pushing product onto the new customer, or like, let's say, cross-selling products. So I think there are many other aspects we focus on, but I think there is much more importance to the customer experience in the initial days, evolving days, to build a brand. I think brands are getting vanished just because I think the stickiness of the customer, or like, let's say, experience of the customer is bad. I think over the time there will be a day when we have to vanish. So I think we have to run these two horses together, like, let's say, customer experience, happiness with, for the of the existing customer on top of the acquisition. So I think these two run in parallel, only then brands will survive.
Yeah, but do we think brand loyalty still exists today?
So I would say advocacy. For example, like, let's say we have a very strong community in place. So for example, we are very strong in influencer marketing. So we see a lot of I think today, even today, I think we have a very strong retention rate, especially because we are active across the board. For example, loyalty comes from various ways. Like, let's say, the communication, who is communicating that? Like, let's say you call it brand ambassador, advocacy. For example, we fall into more active segment, active cohort. So if a runner speaks about our product, I think obviously the users will get connected with that runner, because I think the one who is using that product is a runner. So I think the way you communicate to the customer, the medium through which you communicate to the customer, make a user loyal to the brand. I think that is what I strongly believe, because I think the minute you have a loyal customer, that adds as an advocacy, and it adds more value to the business. I think lately, I don't know, I think brand loyalty has been given importance, but I think that is going to be forever important piece of business.
Great, great. So now we spoke about brand loyalty, we spoke about platforms, we spoke about data, and we spoke about a lot of things. Okay, but one of the things, that traditionally again has been, there's been an environment where we only used to talk about retail, brick and mortar stores. Then we spoke about an e-commerce and e-delivery, which is the entire app ecosystem and the web ecosystem. Then we came up with this whole thing called as omni-channel experiences or cross-channel experiences. What do you all perceive? I mean, what do you all think? What would be the next wave? There's so much conversations around Web 3.0 that are happening. The whole conversation around metaverse that's happening. You all think from a customer experience is something that things are going to move in that direction, and if they do, what would be the differentiator? Like, how would we be able to, like, how can we use data? How can we use experience of the real world that Giant specializes in delivering to the platforms that of CleverTap? How do we kind of bring those experiences here on Web 3.0?
So, and I'm going to lead it up so that, Ajayant can actually answer how to bring it alive. Today, brands are experimenting in that Web 3.0. And I don't know if every brand that's experimenting has decided on what they will gain out of a metaverse activity, or any of the elements of, having a NFT or whatever everybody is trying to do. I don't know if that's been decided. But tomorrow, we all want to be in a stage where we definitely understand what the consumer is going to gain, because that's only when he's experienced your brand and he's going to come back. And what do we gain? It'll all depend on the life value of that consumer, of how much you want to invest in them, what kind of experiences work with them, and how do we bring that alive is going to be very, very important. It has to be a win-win for both brand and the consumer. And that's when the journey is going to be a very long journey for a relationship. And then maybe we'll get to the brand loyalty from that in the long run. And how do we bring it alive? I don't know if Jayant has a solution already for us. We'll go with that then.
No, I mean, I would only talk about a possible scenario. And the possible scenario, to my mind, is I don't think we're going to go away from the basics. And the basics for a brand is a promise. And users today get to know about whether we're delivering that promise or not through the value that we're delivering in our app or on our website. If we're not doing that, they are anyway going to go away and there's no brand loyalty. Okay, so that fundamental will remain the same. That doesn't go anywhere. Okay, with that though, with metaverse coming in, how do we better the experience again? So both those points that we spoke about, experience and retention, will become even more important now, because the experience in the meta world is going to be very different from experience in the real world.
Okay.
Okay, and how do we, and it's still evolving. So I don't think I have an answer. All that I can look at is a trend that these things will become even more important. So it's not anymore a choice of whether you have to better your customer experience or whether you want to, kind of look at, retaining or improving retention. It's, I think, with metaverse, with idealist world, it's all these things are going to become even more important. How they will become, I think that technology is evolving. I don't think we have an answer yet to that.
Okay, no, but again, from a metaverse point of view, most users believe that metaverse is something that is possible only through the Oculus or through high-end devices of kinds of those things. With the Web 3.0, like for example, building assets on Ethereum towers, creating an asset on on the existing Facebook platforms. How much do you think brands in the future are going to go into that space? Because at the end of it, for most brands, it's about reach and frequency. How many customers do I get into a single place where they can see my product? They can interact with my product. I can drive aided discovery. I can bring people into my top of the funnel, or best, because of the influencer bit and because of the whole perception that you created for the brand at the first experience itself, how can I basically bring them straight into my consideration phase, bypassing the first two phases completely? So where do you think Web 3.0 can play a role in this? Jasmine, Venkat, Jayant, anybody wants to take this?
I think it will help us faster with faster GTM. Okay, so today, if I look at the funnel, right from an MQL or jargon again, marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead to a demo kind of a scenario. It could be different for a B2C trial or whatever. That journey will get accelerated with Web 3.0 and kind of metaverse, because now I can, through that experience, feel the product better. Is what my 2 cents are on this case, and therefore, more and more people would start that sales cycle would come down. The adoption would be even faster. And to your question on brand loyalty, those brands who live up to the promise or the value that they promised would gain more, and brands which do not deliver that experience would, kind of lose out.
Okay, great. So what we're trying to basically overall say is the combination, base our entire conversation that we've had in the last half an hour to an hour. It's about how do we bring in the right set of data to understand the consumer better? How do you understand the right touch points on which we can engage with them? How can we then take that journey ahead and bring them from active retention, move from passive retention to active retention? And then the whole referral part of it. Yeah. But while we're talking about this full journey that we spoke about, also, there's also going to be 2 different kinds of users, right? There are some who would be sitting at the fence and some who would be really our core audience. One is the entire audience and one is our bullseye focused audience that we want to talk to, who are a high net, high worth clients. Do you all think that there is a need for us to create a different kind of user experience, or craft a complete different customer experience journey, or orchestrate a customer experience journey for these kind of audience that we want to talk to, or these kind of audience whom we want to engage with?
Yeah, I think
like based on the share of wallet.
yeah. So I think if you look at app world, like let's say there are free app use subscription versus paid subscription users, right? So the one who is sitting in fence is using free subscription, and we need to bring them into paid subscription as a business. So I think the very important piece that we need to do is, again, it's not about pricing or it's not about anything, but it's more about how we convey our value, our product's value, or our services value to the customer who is sitting near fence, to understand our the value that we are going to create for him the minute he becomes a paid customer or existing customer. So so I think that the value that we are going to add to him, the value that we are going to create to him, needs to be communicated really well while he is sitting near fence. So maybe while he is on being like let's say free usage subscription customer. So I think the minute you convey that, I think it becomes very easy for you to retain him once he becomes a paid subscriber.
Great, interesting. Jan, you want to take this question?
Yeah,
Jan?
so I think it is based on the industry and the product, and it is not one size fits all. There are companies who do not believe in free trial at all, and they only look at kind of paid subscribers. There are companies who believe in kind of acquiring customers through the freemium model, wherein you come on a free trial. Some companies do it as a free trial, which is time bound. Some companies do it as a light version, which is freemium version. You keep using, and those models will continue. I don't think those models will kind of change. Based on the nature of the product, you may want to retain both the models or one of them. Okay, so it'll be based on the industry and the product to me, and not the same thing for everyone.
Also, I think, Jayant, beyond that, it'll be what what as a brand you want to invest behind, and what is the life value of the consumer. And I just mentioned about it a few minutes back. What is it that the life value of consumer that you are expecting to happen, and therefore how much do you want to invest in it?
Absolutely.
So by category, and what is the life value of that consumer that you're looking to gain out of that for your brand as well.
Correct.
So one final question, in this entire thing, and it's a little larger in nature, and it's going to be a very interesting one too. We've been speaking about creating customer experience journeys. We've been talking about creating user experiences. We've been talking about hyper personalization. How far are we, as an industry, where we start orchestrating customer journeys? Wherein, are we there? Do we think as an industry we are at a position where we can start orchestrating customer journeys by actually preempting and creating experiences which are 3 times better than what the consumer is expecting today? And second question to that whole thing is, do you think brands will, the competition today is not against 2 brands. The competition is against the brand bettering its own user experience from the previous experience that they have given. So what are your thoughts on these?
Honestly, I think we are kind of ready in terms of we don't only just look at the past data and the present data. We are in the stage where we're doing future predictive modeling to understand who this consumer is going to be, where is he going to be, why does he need an XYZ product, trying to understand the whole thing to make sure that you are part of that whole journey. So yes, as an industry, we are there to do the future predictions also. To the second part, consume, and I'm just going back on the circle on the consumer bit. If you've understood them really well, you're going to make sure that not only do they come in, they engage with you more, and they stay and become your advocates as well.
But Jasmine, again, to counter you on that, how do you measure that? What are the measurement matrices that you would keep in mind to measure that consumer behavior shift? What are those measures that you would keep in mind to understand, like, what are those parameters that you would look at? Because as marketers, one of the key things that, as from an agency as well as from a CMO level, the key discussion that happen is, where are my measurable KPIs?
Right.
And user experience as a parameter, apart from standard heuristic principles that we work on, there are no set KPIs that we could define success matrices on. It's always tangible to business, and there's always an intangible side of user experience that we create in the user's mind, which is coming back to my first question of emotional value and rational value both coming in together. So, do you think the traditional practices of measurement and research will be applicable in this space too?
It'll have to be a blend of the two, where you have your traditional only business, is it resulting in my business, etc. And how many times is the consumer engaging? So today you want to know how many times has the consumer actually engaged with the posts and everything. That's gone in the past. But today, what are they talking to you about? Whereas is it resulting in my business revenue? Is it also then marrying it to the brand health and how they think about your brand and the emotional bit of now consumer researches are not about top of mind to consideration to everything. Now brands are actually measuring of the 5 elements that I want them to understand. Is my consumer actually landing with up? So suppose a brand wants to stand up to be a brand for all kind of problems or pain solutions. They are checking on if my brand is standing to be the solution for pain solutions. So those softer measurements, the business KPIs and the media and the touch point KPIs are all have to be blended together for results today and future predictions coming in also.
Lovely. Great.
So if I can give an example, real example. Okay. Now, Jasmine spoke about holistic KPIs, right? Now, if I have to be very, very specific in the app, okay, so I'm taking an example, for example, e-commerce. Now, it's not about overall retention for them, but it is new user retention. It's about the new user engagement, the order transaction value, okay, and the churn. And then, I can actually go on, while I'm talking to you, I've opened the slides. There are some like 25, 30 KPIs that are measured by, the product leaders and the marketers today. So there are KPIs and there are hard KPIs that people measure on. And they have a battery of people in their teams to kind of keep working on it. So answer to your question, Bharatesh, is that we are already there. There are many companies. I can talk about a broad number. 10,000 companies, 10,000 mobile apps that I know of work with us only to kind of measure these KPIs and work on it. So I think we're already there.
Great. I think this conversation can go on and on, but I think there's a paucity of time, and we've already overshot by 5 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience who would want to bring up any questions, or if not, thank you, panelists, for all the great insight that you guys have brought in this conversation. It was really a pleasure speaking to each one of you all, getting to know your perspective about the industry and the importance that customer experience and user experience has in this current world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bharatesh, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for such an interesting panel discussion, and I'm sure our audience had a lot to learn from your experiences and from your knowledge. Well, now we move forward to the last session of the day on technology trends, expectations in 2022. And for this session, I would like to invite our industry experts, Mr. Harsh Shah, Managing Partner from Dentsu Web Chutney, Lalatendu Das, Chief Executive Officer, Performance India, Ms. Monica Khurana, Country Head, MME India, Nikhil Kumar, Vice President, India and SEA, Media Smart and Affle Company, Mr. Raghu Seelan Sethi, Parva, Founder and CEO, Mr. Rahul Marwa, Vice President, Media Activation India from Essence, and Mr. Rajiv Dubey, Head of Media, Dabur. This session will be moderated by Mr. Tabriz Alam, Chief Data Strategy Officer from Bobble AI. I welcome you all, and over to you, Mr. Tabriz. Sir, you're on mute actually.
Yep. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Enough? Yeah, great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Welcome everyone to the CAMP Summit, right? I hope, we can have a wonderful session. So, just to shape up this session, I would request everyone to just give a short introduction of yourself, right? By the name and the designation in the company. That would be great. I mean, apart from what Dinal has already given the introduction for. Can we start from?
I'll go first, Tabriz.
Harsh?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Harsh. I work with Dentsu Web Chutney. I lead business and people at Chutney. My designation is managing partner. So yeah.
Great.
That's
great.
I can go next.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. This is Lalat Sendu. Call me LD. I lead Performance, one of the largest performance marketing agencies in India. We are part of the business group, which brings the full stack marketing solution, including creative, media, technology, and performance. I'm pleased to be here and looking forward to this discussion.
Great, Alessandro. We look forward. Monica, can we go with you? I mean,
absolutely. So I'm Monica Khurana. I head MMA in India. I have a lot of friends on this panel and I was so looking forward to this chat. It's 21 years that I've been in the digital space, but now I feel like, I'm learning afresh. That just shows how much change has happened in the ecosystem in the last 2 years.
Great, Monica. We welcome you. Nikhil, my friend, what about you?
Wish you all a very happy Friday and familiar faces, old friends, old and new. We have all met in the offline world and good to be back online. But I hope to meet each one of you offline very, very soon, sometime, somewhere. But I am Nikhil. I lead the business for India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East for one of the acquired companies of the Artel Group called MediaSmart. Designations are insignificant. I work here, so I'm happy to be a part of this panel.
Yeah, great to have you, Nikhil. And I know I work closely with MediaSmart in terms of executing campaigns, so I know the wonderful platform it is, right? Rahul, can we go with you?
Yes, happy Friday, everyone. Great to be here. I lead digital for Essence in India. Essence is a data-driven agency, and we are part of Group N. I hope everyone's enjoying their Friday, and great to be here.
Great to have you as well, Rahul. Rajiv, if we can move to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rajiv Dubey. I head media for Dabur. I guess I'm the only odd man out here, but I'll try to justify my being here in some way. And Tabriz, we can't hear you very well. Probably you should come closer to the mic, maybe,
Yeah. Is it better now? I'm actually sorry, guys. I mean, I'm traveling and I just landed up in Goa. So I'm just taking a call from a remote corner. So probably my voice is not that great, but you're not the isolated one.
Yeah. So if you come closer to your microphone, I think can hear you well, actually.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah. It is better, actually. Yes.
All right. Great to have you, Rajiv. And you're not the odd one because you are the one who create the products, right? So.
Right.
All right. Raghu.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm probably from the youngest organization here, from a company called Parvat. We just launched a little while ago, a couple of months ago, actually. We're a publisher-owned consortium. So we're basically, our vision is to come in and really create more options for media buying for the likes of the media buyers here, and really come back to you folks with tailored solutions. So and I'm running this organization, and we're about 4 or 5 people, small at this point, but hoping for a great road ahead. And thanks for having me.
Great, thanks, Raghu. Probably a young business, but old experience always comes handy. So I know you're basically on for a new game, definitely in the AdTech world. So just introduction, lead the data. Data strategy, basically
we're not able to hear you at all, Tabriz.
Better.
Yeah, there's a lot of crackling. So.
Yeah, your voice is breaking.
Yeah, I need to just.
Yeah, can you remove the headphones? So maybe.
My speakers are working. That's the reason.
It's still.
It's very choppy, actually, Tabriz. Very choppy.
Probably it's not your speakers; it's your internet. So
Yeah, perhaps.
Probably. So, sorry, guys.
If I
I'm
make
more
Tabriz go
audible.
off video, it may help you for a bit because it just helps
it
save
might
time.
not help Anil and team for recording the session, though, Monica. You've
Yeah,
been
but
there. You know
if
the
we
drill.
can't hear him, we can't give him answers. So the
You know
choice
the
is to be
drill.
made.
No, I think Tabriz, as you figure, I think any of us can just take over. Because obviously time is limited and everybody's having a great Friday. And I think we did see some of the stuff that you had shared, but I mean, I'll just pick up the thread while you sort your speaker out. Once you're back, just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it
Nikhil,
better
I
now,
think
guys?
it's a good idea. Let's start with this.
Fantastic. Perfect. So Rajiv, since you felt you're the odd one out, while you were also joining us on a Friday, let's start with you. The topic is technology trends, and Dabur has been at the helm of managing a lot of trends. A game changer in the consumer segment, been around for a very long time, always the challenger, but always also the winner, across categories, across segments, across multiple SKUs that you operate in. So when it comes to technology, how are you guys looking at it? One, from a pure consumer standpoint, and then from an advertising or media lens, does that change a lot for you?
Absolutely.
How's that for a starting question? Unprepared,
Yeah.
just impromptu.
I will just start by saying that we have two sets of brands in our company. One set of brands where we are leaders by far, and there are second set of brands where we are challengers and we are struggling. So the categories where we are leaders, for example, Chyawanprash, then honey, then say juices, we have more than 60% market share. Like we are the market almost, right? And challenges like where we are the categories are big, and we are challenges like oral care, hair care, etc., where we are like 10, 15%, 15% odd market share. So those are the categories where we struggle to gain market share, and always the objective is to gain market share wherever we are. Either it's a big category or a small category, or you're a leader wherever. So I'll just start with a journey where just about 2 years back, 2.5 years back, our share of the total business from e-commerce used to be just about 1.5% of the total business, which grew to almost 8% in June last year. And it is very significant, and we are leaders, so to say, in the FMCG segment as far as the e-commerce business is concerned. All that has been possible because the way we understood data, we made changes in our the way we do business. We set up our own systems, and basically everything started with understanding of consumers and how the consumers are going to behave in these times, and we leveraged it and worked on it. So that the proof of pudding is in eating, and the pudding is that we have the proof is that we are sitting at a very high percentage of our business coming from e-commerce. That's one. And then trying to get more insights from our social listening, which we do, and turning that into insight, and then turning that into a business idea. We launched lots of products in e-commerce, which are digital first brands, and those brands are doing pretty well. So that's been our short journey, so to say, if I were to use last 2 years as game changers for us.
Very interesting, Rajiv. I think nothing can be discussed in isolation when it comes to technology trends, and probably technology trends is a subset of now saying what was pre-COVID and post-COVID. One way of looking at your data could have been pre-COVID and post-COVID, 1.5 to 8, but there's always perspective. So going from you to probably another stalwart, Rahul, are you deep in thoughts, or are you just thinking what question could land up your way? Impromptu.
Happy to get any questions. I have two screens, so I keep looking up.
Good to see you, Rahul. What's happening in terms of the tech trend space when it comes to the WPP group? You've been at the helm of really developing things from scratch, being the leaders globally, and bringing those tech trends to brands like Dabur or many others in that space, not just CPG. I mean, most of the world is becoming app first and digital first, and we all talk about things in perspective when we discuss with Rajiv, what do you think are the possible core key trends that I think any marketer or person in MarTech should look at? And Tabrez, whenever you are back, just give me a thumbs up. I'll give the moderator mic back to you. I'm just filling in, buddy.
I'm back if I'm able. I mean, if you guys are able to listen to me now.
Perfect. Can hear you.
Yeah.
Yep, great.
Loud and
No, I mean, you've been doing great, and I think Rahul, you already have a question from Nikhil, so I mean, we can carry on
Yes.
with that. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thanks, Nikhil. Well, the group has always been a leader, in terms of doing new things and trying on new technologies. There are a lot of keywords that has been going around these days. And everyone is trying to figure out how does their brand really fits into this. One of them could be metaverse. But if I move pure play to technology, right? This is what we've seen is there are certain areas where we believe it's going to get scaled up. And I'm going to quote the Miriam India MarTech report that came out last year, which essentially said, and we took survey of a lot of CMOs, industry leaders, CTOs, but marketing analysis, performance, and attribution. These are the three things that comes up at higher than anything else. The second one is the CDPs that's coming in. So I think while we have metaverse coming in, social commerce taking its place, all sorts of new things which is happening in India, which is absolutely great to see. I think the more we do that, the more we have to go back and understand the value of the advertising that we can actually go back to, right? So, and if you see the tech stack that's actually moving up in India, and it's different across different. So when I say performance and attribution market analysis, maybe that's great in auto or a mobile brands. But in retail and FMCGs, it's still not as high as BFSI or auto or mobile. So it's not one size fits all. But broadly, the lever says that these are the technologies which seems to be coming up in India. And I've just heard Rajiv, they use social listening and they're increasing their spends on e-com. And obviously that trend is going to go up. And the more we go into new spaces, the more we go back and trying to understand what is the ROI that we actually get delivered. And I think everyone across CTOs, CMOs, CFOs are just working towards trying to find what is the best ROI and what is that one North Star metrics that one can really rely on, because every time there's a new platform, there's a brand new North Star metrics that comes in place.
Absolutely.
I hope. Yeah. Back to you, Tabriz.
Yeah. Great. Rahul, great to hear your thoughts. Next one, I think the question is for Harsh, right? So Harsh, you've been taking care of Dense Web Chutney, and what are some ways in which you feel that the AdTech and the MarTech will continue to merge in 2022, where the insights to activations are becoming the talk of the trade, right? As an AdTech is automating and the markets are growing, the business outcomes are changing, like Rahul was telling about, right? What do you think is the next perspective in the contextual marketing?
I think at the outset, I would want to definitely mention this. I think we are too late, right? We are at least 3 to 4 years behind in having this conversation of whether AdTech and MarTech, should be, there should be a convergence point there or no. I think it definitely should be. They should be complementing each other and working together so that while we are able to reach the right audience, we are also able to deliver on the business objectives as well, right? I think organizations nowadays, what we've started seeing is they're increasingly looking at ways to reach, new heights, and a combination of two would, help paint a more holistic view of their target market, right? So while, say, for example, if I am looking at targeting a certain audience, I already have my first party data. I can actually keep using that data to refine my target audience and kind of look for better targeting more and more and better ROI on the monies that I'm spending. So that becomes a lot more, holistic that way in that nature. So I think that's one thing. I think the fact also since I come from a creative agency, so to speak,
Yes.
one of the things that we've started seeing more and more is how technology has started catering to creative effectiveness as well, right? So while technology and data becomes my backbone, it gives my creativity arms and legs to perform, right? So that's the two-way street that we are going after in terms of making sure that while we own up to our digital history and our digital lineage, but also see how creatively we can start improving the ways we reach our audience or communicate with our audience, and also deliver business objectives at the same time, right? Then of course, I mean, there has to be growth of sales, and I'm sure Rajiv would agree that eventually it needs to also lead to growth of sales. I think that I could very safely assume, with Rajiv being on this panel, saying that brands are also looking at using their first party data very effectively, which was considered to be the holy grail up till now, and we were not using that effectively when it comes to the AdTech side of the things. So yeah, efficiency involves connecting all these touch points, and this shift is not, and I think one thing that definitely we know that this shift is not without any risk. Evaluate that risk and move ahead. I think that's the mantra here. Right?
Interesting. Creativity backed up by data and innovation, right? That's the new thing that you're trying to build up. Now let's move it to Lalatendu. Lalatendu, I mean, how do you expect the CMOs across organization to lead movement towards convergence, right? Since data would remain the driving factor, right, behind all the converged campaigns. What is that? What is your feeling, right? How Performix is trying to address to that sort of an issue?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Very interesting question, Tarvez. And I think we heard Rahul highlight some of the opportunities that's on top of my mind for CMOs. Let me also start some of the headwinds that CMOs are kind of now worried about. In my conversation, I think essentially three things kind of come up. One is obviously the browsers are limiting the digital identifier, whatever we call as cookie-less world and all that. That's number one. Number two, all these platforms are creating their own walled garden. I think many of the CMOs are really struggling that the same customer, maybe I'm reaching through Facebook, Google, is it efficient? And thirdly, the more recently, it's more about data privacy. The laws are coming in and I have my first party data. Am I holding PII? Am I ready? Right? So if I look at these headwinds, many of the CMOs that I am seeing who are a little bit progressive and starting to make investment, I could summarize surveys in 4 specific areas where I see investments are going in to stay ahead of this, right? Getting this convergence. Number one, some of our clients have started investing in CDPs or whatever DMPs you call, but CDPs mostly in enriching your first party data. All right, and these needs massive scale, but it's happening, right? It's no longer a concept, but I'm seeing that in live in action. Number two, pretty much everybody is investing on advanced analytics, machine learning. But I think the differentiator is what are the use cases, right? Some of our customers I see, using very effectively advanced analytics for richer segmentation, propensity models, getting the attribution right. So some of these things we are seeing very practical, implementation. Number three, designing for privacy and security, whether it's encryption or whether you think about anonymization tools, how do you design from day one? And lastly, focusing on your in-house organic process, right? Be it content or investing in SEOs or automation of web analytics and doing a lot of A/B testing. I think if you think broadly, these are the 4 areas that I'm seeing many of the CMOs are already making investment to get this convergence story right.
Great to hear that thought. Yeah, I see that most of the agencies and everybody is trying to invest into the CDPs, building the holistic journeys of the users, and again trying to marry it to the benchmarking that is already there in the market, right? We don't have a lot of competition over there. So great. I mean, thanks for the thoughts, Lalatendu. Now moving on to Monica. Monica, I'm so sorry about the mic and all the issues, right? Right. So Monica, just a question for you, being from MMA, right? How your members seeing the interplay of CAM and how are they embarrassing it?
Perfect. Couldn't be a better question for me. So let me first start off by, really putting it out there, just as a general reminder that today there is no marketing without MarTech, right? You cannot have marketing where there is no MarTech. So they're quite integrated, they're quite hand in glove, right? And of course, organizations are at different stages of adopting MarTech. Some are at a beginner stage, some are at a more evolved stage. So what we did is essentially we did a study to understand the MarTech maturity levels of our member organizations. And we had bucketed them into level 1 to level 5, where level 1 was like absolutely nascent, and level 5 was the really mature, hyper connected organization. What we found out that 40% of the organizations were actually in level 1, right? And 13% were actually in level 5, with the rest in between in 2 to 4. Okay, so which means there's definitely a long way to go. And like somebody in the panel mentioned that we're anyways behind time. So there's of course a lot of accelerated adoption needed and education needed on how MarTech stacks add value to organizations and how they can be leveraged for growth and performance. It's not more for a fad. It's not for just a tick mark. It just does enable growth and performance. What we also noticed is that automobile, BFSI, and e-commerce were the sectors which were ahead of the curve and were setting a lot of benchmarks, had a lot of use cases which the ecosystem could learn from. So these are definitely 3 categories which are doing a lot more. And it's about FMCG and retail is now definitely catching up as per that study that we saw. So having said that, the way I would conclude this point, that it is the era of MarTech. That's basically MarTech plus AdTech. Both need to marry, both need to work hand in glove. And like Harsh mentioned, ContentTech is indispensable because today, there's this triangle which is at work, which is community, culture, and content, right? And which can only intersperse at the back of technology. So therefore, they all kind of interplay and work together to deliver the needed customer experience and the needed, engagement value for the consumer. So that's our observation.
Great. So engagement, right? And who else other than Nikhil can explain this, with the technology and the sectors, where they've been, reaching out through Media Smart. So, Nikhil, if you can just help us to understand your, modeling and the Media Smart capabilities in terms of addressing these issues which are there in the market from the technology point.
Sure, thank you. I think one thing we all realize that now, no matter how much we talk about MarTech or AdTech, mic problems can go beyond any tech solutions, right? Even after 2 years of doing that. But good to have you back, Tabriz, and great to see you again, Mike. I hope you have great time in Goa. But great to hear a lot of thoughts coming in. I hope, Monica, the report that you're talking about the companies is not publicly available, because it will put a lot of people in trouble. 40% of those companies are lagging on, I think, on digital.
It is publicly available. It's publicly available. It's a primary study. So, of course, it's represented.
Very interesting. I think also one more point, I think, picking up a thread from your thought process, that I think I have spent a large time myself in the FMCG, obviously incomparable to some, when it comes to Rajiv, but a lot of time FMCG gets brought up that, they yet to need to catch up on digital. I think it's also a function of the sheer size, right? The sheer size of digital spend of an FMCG and the budget they allocate to innovations and tech innovations versus an auto care brand is substantially different, right? Every time you see a BARC report, you will still have a Reckitt and a HUL at the top, because they are disproportionate spenders, and the amount of spend that they do on tech innovations is so small that it doesn't probably starkly stands out. But these are the guys who are actually doing a lot more on experimentation and doing new things and investing in first party data, built their own CDP, already sitting on a cloud platform. Yes, but I think it's just some of the larger organizations operate in a certain silo and some don't. But anyways, I think interesting points. Coming back to MediaSmart, I think we have been a large voice when it comes to technology adoption. We have always been ahead of the curve when we talked about just the sheer way you reach your audiences. We entered this Asian market. We've been around for close to 10 years, but largely across global markets like Europe and LATAM. But when we entered the Asian market, we clearly saw a gap that, this is the way the consumers consume their digital consumption itself while locked within their homes, within the four walls of their room is changing drastically. And what happened from TV to mobile is what you are seeing with connected TVs. And we saw that trend quite early, and we became one of the largest voice, which has been very prominently speaking about connected TV for a year and a half. And now you see everybody is jumping onto that bandwagon. Everybody wants to do talk about connected TV. But I think we didn't stop there. And we also realized that in isolation, when it comes to tech trends, nothing will remain in isolation when it comes to the future of digital tech, because we are talking about connected devices. Your user ID is the same when you watch a connected TV. You are the guy who has the same mobile. Probably when you cross a certain area, you see a digital OH, or probably that OH is still connected to location relevance. So we are talking about a system or evolution of connected ecosystems. The problem that we foresee here is, and I think brought up by one of the panelists, was walled gardens, right? I mean, not all datas look the same or look at outcomes as same, which is where I think the future of the business will be programmatic. I think would be great to hear from Raghu as well after me, that how they are bringing up a new system, a new ecosystem of democratizing access, or probably looking at perspectives of giving the same reach across multiple platforms. But when it comes to us, we have been always a neutral platform. We are programmatic. We look at the business as a unified reach. Where all can you use or reach your users with the maximum impact? Where can you create funnels where you can actually take it back to the brand and talk about conversions? I think we all live in a world today where brand and performance are words created by mostly ad tech guys, right? But if you work on the other side of the world, when you give money, you want an outcome, right? That's predominantly how simple the world is. I think when the two marriage of the worlds happen, which is from the ad tech side and the brand side, probably you will see newer convergence, and some probable words that we use so often may not even exist. I mean, we live in a world today where if somebody comes in, pitches you a reach and impact plan and impression plan, you probably don't even talk to him and you say,
talk to him. Yeah, absolutely.
See you later.
No,
So
great.
yeah,
Great, Nikhil. I mean, cross-device solved the purpose for me as well, right? Because I'm using mic from my mobile and then screen on the laptop. So definitely, and thank you for taking up the mic for a time being. You've been a great help. Now, moving from a programmatic bit, which just Nikhil talked about, Raghu. I mean, a platform that you have developed with the consortium of premium Indian publishers, right? And you have been, I think you've been partnering with the largest and the most loved domestic publishers like Times, Sakal, to create a media buying solution for your customers, right? What is the advent of marketing technology or the data analytics? I know that, within Media Smart, we see a lot of data being incorporated, but, how is Purva seeing that, right? From the, why the marketing? What do you think? What is the vision of these technologies and information which will help you as an Purva, right, to reach out to the customers in a more, sort of a confined manner?
A great question. Thanks, Tabriz. Appreciate it. And Nikhil, thanks for bringing it up. So one of the key trends that I've begun, much like most people here, I've been in this industry for over 12 years now. Monica, by the way, was actually our first customer. We are in India because of Monica. So we've been in this industry for many years, and had conversations with the key stakeholders, right? So spoke to agency folks, spoke to publishers, spoke to some of the large advertisers. And across the board, what we were seeing was that there were some concerns in terms of what the way the industry was evolving to each of these stakeholders. Each of them had a key perspective, and then COVID hit, and then we saw a complete explosion in terms of media consumption, tremendous amount of media consumption was happening on regional content. They're happening on news portals because news portals were seen as these trusted sources of news, etc. And and we said, look, how can we, and then we were basically, when we talked to publishers, we saw this, or agencies as well, we saw this gap where the conversations that they were having with the direct sales teams of publishers were very different from how they were approaching programmatic as well. So when they were talking to direct sales teams, the conversations were always very strategic. They were very outcome based, etc. And when you were talking to programmatic, it seemed for some reason that the conversation was Times inventory is the same as some other inventory that's available on a website that was published 4 days ago, right? So, and we were seeing massive amount of studies around fraud, industry fraud, etc. And we said, look, how do we create an ecosystem that is one, outcomes driven, right? So brands like Dabur invest a tremendous amount of money in digital. And not Dabur, but other conversations we've had, we've said, look, we really don't know what we're getting from these spends. We're not sure of what the outcomes are, and like somebody said, each platform defines outcomes very differently. So our challenge was, how do we go back and create a solution to address these problems, right? So one, we said we're going to work with only premium publishers. So, to be a part of this consortium, you have to be a publisher that is of repute and has scale and has been in this market for many years. So that's the reason the initial set of publishers that we worked with, you mentioned as well, the praise of the Times of India, the Sakals of the world, etc. And then what we said was that, look, let's go back to, let's use data, let's use our data capabilities to really understand who our customers are, right? So we've gone using some pretty advanced capabilities. We've created segments, but about 7,000 segments. So of consumers who we believe are really high quality premium consumers. That our customers can come and reach in an environment that is truly trustworthy, and in an environment that's fair, right? So a lot of times, we talk to some publishers, they say, look, for every 100 rupees that's being spent on media, by the time it comes to us, if you're lucky, it's 35 rupees. If you're not lucky, it's 2 rupees, right? So, so how do you basically create an ecosystem that's fair for everybody? And that's what we're doing, guys. That's basically our vision, is to create a fair, transparent ecosystem, which is fair for the buyers and it's fair for the sellers as well, right? And hopefully remove layers and layers of fraud that's happening in the business. So that's what we're trying to do.
Great. I mean, we heard from platforms, we heard from agencies. Now let's go back to Rajiv, right? Rajiv, question for you. Now you understood that everybody is talking about audience cohorts, relative targeting, or predictive audiences, which are more relevant for the brands. Nikhil has brought up the issue, saying that everything is performance driven, right? We're not talking more about impressions. So, I mean, Dabur has been well known for traditional promotional medium, but I see in the recent past, and I've seen closely that they are shifting their market strategy to digital first approach. Now, how do you presently leveraging the technology to achieve your branding goals?
So I think everything starts with the consumer. See, so keeping consumer in focus. So that's what matters for businesses like ours, and if you look at a typical business like an automobile business, or say or NBFC business, there which person to target. Here what happens is that at the max we can target a cohort, right? We can't target one particular consumer, so as to say. So that's the difference, So one is looking at cohorts, one is looking at both the top funnel through a larger platforms like DV360 of Google, or say bottom funnel with likes of Amazon, etc. So that's one end of journey. Second end of journey is then creating your own D2C platform and trying to see if you can do some justice to that. But that's very hard road to travel, because that's very late for any FMCG to enter that. arena, but still, never too late to get a first party data and start building your own stack and then funnel it back to the mainstream and then target consumers like that. But that, having said that, that will still constitute to a certain part of business, because, if you look at the construct of our business, we still go to over 66 lakh outlets in the country, right? So our distribution is second only to Unilever in the country. Out of total 80 lakh outlets which are available in the country, we are almost in about 70-80% outlets in the country. So that becomes the first protocol for us, but not to leave behind this other end of growing consumer base, which is not to be left behind. Consumer and understanding of consumer and going to the right kind of cohort. That's what we are focusing on that right now, as far as consumers are concerned. Then on the other end, and other functions like the supply chain, in which our supply chain system is very, very evolved system. Integrating that system to plan a better demand for the brands, and then getting it right. So those kind of things one is trying to attempt at a company level, so that in future, the future is going to be very different. Like what Yogi Berra once said, that about the future, that it's very difficult to predict the future. So that's what we are trying to predict the unpredictable, and trying to see what best we can do to understand the consumer and go after the right cohort of people to target and make them loyal to our categories. Because losing a category, losing a market share is very, very easy. The moment you lose your focus on consumer, you start losing market share. And we as a company, we have been building market share and category on category on category, right? We have not lost market share in last a decade, so as to say. That's because our consumers' understanding is so great, and we want to leverage on that further.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, and I think the another future which stands out for FMCG in terms of mapping their offline to online users, right, is the identity resolution. That's something where the identity resolution versus the enrichment becomes a key, why, because all your offline customers can be targeted to online medium. And who else other than Essence can basically, Rahul can tell us more about this, because being a media agency known for combining media consultancy with data science, working with clients like Google. So Rahul, question for you: what are the technologies that you're adapting from the data science and creative solution perspective?
Yeah, great question. But before I answer that, I'm going to step back, right? Just go to the basics of the thing. In a sense, we have a philosophy. We always ask why we're doing whatever we are doing, right? But eventually, if you start right from the start, it's about collection of data. There's lots of AdTech technologies over there. And after you collect the data in the most, with brilliant basics put in place, with the right tagging and everything, that's where the data science team really comes in, right? And the data science team, and we got a small team which kind of caters in data science, not just to India, but to APAC also. And what that does is essentially trying to figure out what is the successful metrics that we should be chasing at. That is the core job of a data science team that we look at, right? Once we have defined, and it's not an easy task, right? Because you need to, with headless e-commerce coming in, shops opening up in metaverse, your fridge would probably be enabled with Amazon. So you can imagine the touch points that you will have, right? So how do you really, on all that ecosystem, find that metrics that you need to go after? Once you kind of define the metrics, right? That's the time then we kind of build a lot of models, a lot of audits over there in terms of if that actually works or not. But after that is how do you really activate data? You must have got the data, we've got the metrics, what needs to be changing, but eventually it needs to come to life, right? And what we have seen, not just with Google, but also with many other clients, is eventually it needs to come to the table and says, okay, it delivers for us. And that's where the creative services or creative technology services come in. Eventually, what we are going after is more about value-based optimization rather than brand versus performance versus anything else. And that, I think, makes a whole lot of sense to a lot of scale-up clients, specifically in the digital space. But coming back to creative, right? So that's where the creative is. Now, it's easy to go back and say you do creative testing, which, A versus B. But let's just face the fact, even the consumer does not really like to see a bad creative, right? Now you need to keep that in mind. So you also have to show your creative in an environment which is clutter-free, which is less of annoyance over there, right? And that's the fourth layer comes in, which is the massive technology available in ad fraud. Do you have BS, the BAV technologies like IAS, Mode? We work very closely with them, few of them. And we try to be as much as technology or agnostic, because it depends. One brand needs what Dabur wants versus what Google wants is absolutely different, right? And of course, that's because the consumers are very different. The consumer journey is very different. But eventually, I think what we are going to go up and what we are coming down to is, as the walls go higher with the wall garden, it's about looking at overall ROI rather than just one specific creative, one specific channel. And that's what digital will move into. We're still in the early stages. We follow what's happening in global, but I think that's what it's going to come down to in a year or two.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, I mean, you talked about creative, and I'll go back to Harsh. Harsh, audience, CDPs, now creative. Once again, that's the thought that you left with us, right? As a digitization is now the new game, and how is that? The Dentsu Web Chutney is trying to prep up with the new age advertising and marketing tools from the creative perspective, powered by tech.
I don't think Harsh is here, Tabriz, for a while.
Oh, did he left?
All
right, we can move to Lalatendu, right? Lalatendu, I mean, tell us more about the integrated marketing and digital first approaches of the Performix, right? As an agency that you're offering to the clients. That will give us a lot of thought process, because that can resonate with what just Rahul said, that how the agencies are shaping up the entire technologies for their consumers.
Yeah, and there is we are seeing a profound shift in the market over last, particularly in the post-pandemic era, because when we talk about integrated marketing, earlier we used to be all about agency knowing the platforms, but we are seeing more and more requirement to understand business very closely, because as we talk about analytics models, the understanding or the efficacy of a model would vary depending on how well you understand the industry. And gone are those days where you bring generalists and just talk about platforms and just use everything out of the box from Google and Facebook. So therefore, two specific investment we have made in Performix. Number one, we have organized ourselves internally by industry verticals. So we want to be close to our clients, understand their business, their KPIs. Rahul mentioned about setting the KPIs right, and it's very important. And you can't do that unless you are really focusing on what the success parameter and that industry are. And second, we have invested heavily in 4 capabilities: analytics, marketing tech.
I think we lost him, right, as well. Well, we wait for him to come back, right? Nikhil, I think that was the thought process.
Hi, am I audible?
You're back now.
Yeah, you're back now. We can hear you now. Got it, Lalatendu. I'll just move the conversation to Nikhil. Nikhil, what are the unique ways in which you're helping your advertiser leveraging the mobile programmatic advertising? I mean, people are just thinking that, we've been talking about creative, we've been talking about audience, we've been talking about, the CDPs, but at the same time, the reach out medium is the ad server, right? Or the media smarts or the DSPs of the world, right? And with the competition in terms of, where major spends are happening on Google CPMs, right? How is that media smart addressing these programmatic advertising capabilities from the consumer perspective?
Sure, happy to share. I think we lived in a world where, for a long period of time, where we realized certain users are moving, shifting habits, and mobile became the center of it. When we realized the user is on mobile, we started to analyze and say, why is he on mobile? And the publisher-led strategies came into being, and which is where social became the first part, that every company started having a social media, digital media manager, and then everything evolved, right? And eventually, when we evolved further, and while we became more educated, we realized it's not the publisher-led strategy; it's the user at the central focus of it. And we started thinking, hey, hang on, I want to target by handset, I want to target by geo, I want to target by location. And you started filtering more and more filters. But eventually it leads you to a world where user is the central focus of where your advertising should land. Now, whether it lands on a TOI or whether it lands on a gaming app or a utility app, you really don't know. You can make predictions, and more cases than none, those predictions have always come out quite off, where India has one of the largest gaming population of women, contrary to any other genre of application. Even shopping doesn't have that large, enjoys that large share of women on the genre of application. So I think the more and more focus you have your strategy on getting to the user versus how and where I should get to the user, the more and more your advertising strategies will become streamlined. And which is where exactly programmatic comes in, right? The neutrality of programmatic provides you a platform to get an understanding and reach of the user. Now, the user can be contacted, and obviously you need to build tech to understand that could you also reach that user while he watches his TV. Now, connected TVs have become a big thing, and I've mentioned it earlier in my conversation that what if you can allocate or isolate a IP address of a connected TV and route it back to the mobile IDs in that ecosystem? Suddenly you are again doing the whole mobile ID tracking, and suddenly that you have an understanding of the user who has a connected TV. So it's again going back to the whole user ID, and how many ways you can reach the user, and which is where I believe we've always believed in the neutrality of reaching the user through multiple mediums. The user may or may not be on a publisher that you want him to be, but rest assured, if you want to reach a user, you will reach that user, because there are more tech to make sure that you reach that user. And I think as long as the agency ecosystems evolve, as brands evolve, I think that central focus of understanding. And why are we talking about first party data? I mean, yes, we did bring up first party data so many times, but why are we talking about first party data? You're talking about first party data is because you don't want to depend on a publisher led strategy. You don't want to depend on a walled garden. Why are you talking about first party data? Because you're saying, I want to own the LTV of that user. I want to own the lifetime value. I want to sell him a toothpaste. Once that's done that, I'll sell him an oil, then I'll sell him a car, then I'll sell him everything that my company has to offer. And not just him, I'll understand his parents and his sisters and his brothers. And which is where I think when you start looking at the neutrality of reaching users versus reaching them via a medium, you will increase your focus towards programmatic. I think Asia is one of the fastest growing markets when it comes to programmatic spends. We've always, followed our trends that our counterparts in West do. But I think this time around, we're also bringing on all new ways, because at the end of the day, we got population on our side, right? India is the second highest app downloading country in the world. We've got 650 million internet users in the country. So if anybody says India is lagging on MarTech and AdTech, I think you're so far mistaken, because your numbers are not even comparable to any large country in Europe. So I believe we are going to be the technology leaders. It's very evident in the tech that we bring in. We are actually head on with some of the largest companies in Israel, which are also quite tech heavy. And I think probably the future of the business, I feel, whether it's Media Smart or any other advertising ecosystem, would predominantly be programmatic and on connected devices and understanding user targeting. So that's my 2 cents, Tabriz.
Thanks, Nakil. Thanks. In fact, I wanted to go to Monica, but I'll just finish up this thought because we're in a continuation. So I'll go back to Raghu once again. Raghu, I mean, as in Perva, right? What are the domains of data-driven analytics or AdTech process that you are following? Like Nikhil said that, a device, right? A first party data, how critical it is. We're selling toothpaste, then we're selling another thing to them. How is that Perva is placed in terms of the domain of data driven analytics in the process? Where do you see yourself in the coming years?
So, Tabriz, I'll give you a little bit of a background. So, for us, when we say premium publishers, we're not talking about just the news publishers. So, for us, we have e-commerce sites which are now evolving. They have amazing amounts of data in terms of customer preferences, what they like, what they don't like, what they bought in the past, what they're looking for to buy in the future, where they live, where their parents live, what address does his brother live in. So we get access to a lot of that data as well. And our goal is to really, again, very aligned with Nikhil here. We're very focused on the consumer, right? So today we have upwards of 7,000 audience segments, and we get this data from directly from the publisher partners, etc. And using that, and now we're also seeing that these consumers are not just consuming content in English, but in regional languages as well, right? So how do you basically now how do you communicate more effectively? So adding layers of creative optimization as well on top of that, right? So if somebody's coming in from Chennai, show them a Tamil creative. Somebody's coming in from Ahmedabad, show them a Gujarati creative. So all those kinds of things. So we're really focused on leveraging data to one, understand the consumer better, and two, also communicate more effectively with that consumer, right? And the third strategy that we kind of firmly believe in is contextual, right? So if somebody's on a site that's talking about cars, you don't want to go show them a creative of a washing machine, right? So so you want to say, okay, this is an automobile site. Let's show them automobile creatives, right? So these are some of the kind of the pillars that we're building on, but completely aligned with Nikhil here. Consumer is king. We're focused on the consumer. Build understanding and layers of data around that consumer so that our advertising customers get better results.
Wonderful, wonderful. So keeping respecting the time that we have, Monica. I mean, I just came across one study, and I thought of it should be relevant to bring this up here.
Yeah.
As per the MMA global study on building winning marketing organization, a 1% increase in capability, that's what it said, that the 1% increase in the capability fit leads to 2.5% increase in the sales growth and 2.35 increase in market valuation. Do you want to share a bit more about this study and impact capabilities on growth and performance of the organization?
Of course, happy to. Sure. So actually, just before I share more about the study, the reason why the study actually was also even carried out, because MMA globally focuses on the modern marketing narrative, where we're looking at empowering and enabling the community with the best practices when it comes to modern marketing capabilities, and where, of course, MarTech or the entire CAM portfolio is extremely integral and essential. So basically, this study, which you just highlighted, Tabriz, was a global study which we actually have been carrying market to market, and is also central to a lot of our marquee initiatives this year, be it our annual report, be it our annual event. The reason being is because it's a very robust framework that we culled out of this study, which was conducted across 500 plus marketers, where we were essentially trying to, what we realized, the gap was that the entire decision-making process for transformation is so complicated that there was a need for a structured methodology, which we were attempting to bring through the study. So what we've done essentially is we've created a very practical framework, which is being used by several organizations globally and in India, of course, where we've built this framework which helps organizations really understand the capability stack which can help them grow and transform. Right. And though that framework essentially is encompassing 6 broad areas, like which is divided into 2 parts. So there's customer value and there's firm value, because these are actually the 2 central areas that matter for organizational success. So when it comes to customer value, we're essentially talking the exchange value, experience value, and the engagement value, which are really the 3 areas all of you spoke a lot about. And when it comes to the organizational value, we're talking about the strategic, operational, and knowledge value. So within these 6 areas, what stacks do you need to be able to grow and deliver on performance is what we try to sort of build through the framework which you spoke about. And what that helped organizations do, the more relevant a stack they built, the more it showed on the sales growth and the market value that the organization was delivering. So that's the power of that study. And it allowed them to really assess where they're lacking when it comes to capabilities. So we also allowed them to score themselves whether they fitted into a category called WMO, which is winning marketing organizations, or a category called LMO, which is lagging marketing organizations, depending on how they scored, which was a function of the capability fit they had. So that essentially was the background to the study, which, like I said, delivered on several success parameters.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we know that we just on time, but just to recap, we all understand that there's a immediate need for new innovations within the AdTech and the MarTech, or if I have to say, the MarTech, AdTech, and MarTech all together, right? We have platform necessities, we have we have data necessities, we have insight necessities, which should be we should have a cross device. All these things combined together to build a very customized solution for the advertisers and the marketers. But the wonderful session, guys. It's been a wonderful talking to you, and apologies for all the inconvenience which has been caused because of I being onto the transit before this event was finalized. So apologies for the mic and the other discomfort that you had, but a wonderful session. I thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and making up this first session. Really interesting, really insightful. And we look forward and discussing this over the WhatsApp as well, right? As what are the solutions that we can derive for each other.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
Thank you everyone for, as Mr. Tabrez said, it was really an insightful session. And well, that brings us to the end of the Camp Summit 2022. And once again, I would like to thank our partners for their tremendous support, our co-powered by partner MarTech, our industry partner Adjust. This event is produced and executed by ITV 2.0 Productions. Now, on behalf of IndianTelevision.com Group, I would like to thank all the speakers and viewers for taking out your time to join us for all these 4 days. We hope you had a fruitful time. Do share your feedback with us. Use the hashtag CAMP2022 in your post and tag our official handles. We can be found at ITV News with a Z on Twitter and Facebook, and IndianTelevision.com on Instagram and LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.